Okay, so good afternoon, guys. So welcome to week 6, class 2 of our Flutter beginner training in KodeCamp. So today we're going to be talking about Git, right? Yeah, we'll be looking into Git today and what it's about and how we can actually, kind of make use of it, right? So let's just get started. So basically, Git is what we call a distributed version control system, right? It's a distributed version control system. Now, a version control system is it's just a system that maintains different versions of your project when you're working in a team, right? Or even as an individual, right? So it's a system. It helps you to maintain different versions of your project. Okay. And basically what that's the whole system, it does this system management, right, where it manages the changes you make to your files. So as your project progresses, you're adding new features, you understand. So what a version control system does is that it maintains those different you know um phases, right, versions that your project actually goes through. And one of the essence or reasons of that is you can easily roll back to a particular version without causing any issue to your project, right? And you can even give those versions different names to know that, oh, at this point, this was the state of the project, right? Currently, you guys are working on a particular project now, right? There are different stages. Maybe there's a stage where you finished the first screen, right? There's another stage where you did the second screen. There's another stage where you did the third screen. You understand? You could break those down into stages. Now you can go back to the point where you were actually working on the first screen. You understand? And it won't actually cause any damage to your code. So this is not a control Z. You're not doing anything called control Z. There's a limit to control Z. And there's also a limit to control Y. Control Z is undo, control Y is to redo, right? So that's basically what Git is, right? It's just a distributed version control system. So this is more like a crash course, right? I'll drop some materials on that. So let's look at Git and GitHub. They're actually two different things, right? Git is a distributed version control system, right? And what it does is that it tracks changes in your code during software development. And it was actually designed, or it is designed for coordinating, work amongst individuals, right? But it can actually be used to track changes in, any set of files, right? Any file at all. It must not even be code. It can just be a document, right? And of course, one of the goals of Git is to include, kind of enhance speed, data integrity, and of course, support when you're working from you know, with a different set of people, right? Now, but GitHub is a web-based Git repository hosting service. Okay, it's a web-based Git repository hosting service that offers all of the distributed version control and source code management, right? SCM, source code management. So just take it what is a source code, which is basically your actual code, right? And then management, so helping you to manage your code, right? So it gives you the functionalities of Git, right, as well as some other features, but it's a web-based Git repository hosting service. Now, you may be asking what a repository is, right? A repository is uh, just a place where you can store your code or your files. Okay, that's basically what it is. It's just a place where you store something, right? Let's say your code or your files, right? And the thing is this, each file has what we call a revision history, right? Each file has a history. Okay, we'll learn more about that as we move on. So repositories can actually have multiple collaborators, right? That means different people working on one particular repository. We'll get to actually even do that in the course of KodeCamp, right? Especially if you make it to the final stage, right? And a repository can either be public or private. So that's just GitHub. But let's look at some more differences between the two. Um, So this is just this is from Geeks for Geeks, right? Difference between Git and GitHub. So Git is a software, GitHub is a service. Okay, Git is a command line tool, while GitHub is a graphical user interface. For some of you that have created a GitHub account, okay, yeah, some of these things you should, it should make sense. Git is installed locally on the system, right? While GitHub is hosted on the web. Git is maintained by Linux. GitHub is maintained by Microsoft. Git is focused on version control and code sharing. So what about version control? Like I said, each stage is like a version. There's stage of your development. There's what called version control, such that you can go back to a previous version or state of your project, right? So Git is focused on version control and code sharing, while GitHub is focused on a centralized code hosting, right? Hosts your source code. Git is a version control system to manage source code history, but GitHub is a hosting service for your Git repositories, right? Git was first released in 2005. GitHub was launched in 2008. Git has no user management feature, but GitHub has built-in user management feature, profile, and all those stuff like that. You can create an account and all those things, right? But Git, once you just install it, you can just, kind of um, get to work, with it. Git is an open source license, right? So it's open source. It's accessible to, everyone. But GitHub actually has a free tier and it has a pay for use tier, especially when if you want to do organizations or have access to certain, other features of GitHub, you have to pay, right? But the free tier is actually something that you can use for a long time. Git has minimal external tool configuration, but with GitHub, of course, you can integrate other tools to GitHub, right? To leverage productivity. Git provides a desktop interface named the Git GUI, right? And then, of course, but GitHub provides a desktop interface named the GitHub Desktop. What again? Okay, Git competes with CVS, Azure, DevOps Server, Subversion, Mercurial. Some of these things you may have not heard of it though, but well. But GitHub competes with the likes of GitLab, Bitbucket, AWS code commits. So Bitbucket, you may get to actually use it, at some point in your life. I made use of GitLab, Bitbuckets. But I think I actually started from a from a professional perspective. I think I started with Bitbuckets for actually working with Git, and they're almost the same thing. So that's just the difference between Git and GitHub. Okay. So, but let's go straight into because we're going to do a much more practical stuff, right? Let's go straight into um making use of Git and looking at some basic Git commands, right? Which I'm going to run us through. I'll just run us through it, and then we will now practicalize it. Okay. So we'll look at practicalizing it from 2 points. We'll look at doing it from a command line perspective, and then from your VS Code. Okay. So the first command there is git init, right? And what this command does is that it initializes a new Git repository. Remember what we said about what a repository is, just a place where you store, stuff. So it initializes a Git repository. So what this does is that the command sets up the necessary Git directory structure in that your current directory that you are on your local, on your laptop, right? And once it sets up that structure, it now allows it to start tracking what changes, which you'll see. Start tracking changes to that your directory, that your file. So it creates a .git folder, or what's called directory, where object files are stored. We'll get to see that, okay? The next command there, we have the git status. And what that does is just displays the current state of that your working directory, right? That's what it does. And the staging area. So I'll explain what the staging area, you hear that staging area. Staging area is just what it does, it holds more like just like a snapshot of the changes that you intend to, commit, right? I will talk about commits, right? But let me just say that So just think of it like the middleman, right? Before from your local repository, which is your laptop, to the online repository, right? So it's like the middleman. So when there's changes you need to make, you first of all put it in the staging area, right? So it holds a snapshot of the changes you intend to include, in your next commit. So it's just like a middle ground between your working directory and the repository. Now, so that's basically what the Git status does. So it just shows you updates, right? The current state of your working directory. It shows you which files have been modified, which one is being tracked, which one is staged for the next commit. Now, talking about the staging, so what takes a file to the staging area is the command git add. Okay, so git add command, it stages the changes you have made for the next commit. So it basically just tells Git to include these updates to a particular file or set of files in the next commit. So what is the commit now? So which is the next command, git commit. So the git commit command just use the word it commits or it saves, right, the changes, right, to the repository along with a message. So it always comes with a message that describes what changes, and that message just helps you to understand what that commit is actually about. Okay, so that's the git commit. Okay, so it just records changes, in the repository with a descriptive message. Okay. Yeah. Then we have git log, right? So the purpose of git log is to show your commit history, right? So it displays a list of all the commits in that current, branch. I'll talk about branching in the next. So it talks every commit you have. It kind of just displays that's log. So it gives you a log of, things that have actually been happening, right? So to show your commit hash, the author of the commit, the date of the commit, and even the commit message. So we'll actually play around with this. We'll play around with it. So talking about so before we go to Git branch, we have Git div. So div is just short for difference. So Git div will actually show you the difference between two commits, right? Or two working directories, right? And even the staging area, right? So if I just say git div, it shows changes in the working directory that are not staged. But I can also say git div, dash staged. That means I want you to show me the changes between the staging area and the last commit. Okay, I know some of these things we feel like I'm speaking gibberish, but to practicalize them, but I just want to run them through. It kind of sinks in a bit and then we'll practicalize it. So then git branch, right? That git branch command lists the branches, or maybe even creates a branch. So so what's a branch? What's the concept of branch, right? So when you're actually working on a project, right? Let's 2 or 3 more persons, right? There's a default branch. So think of a branch as a particular room where I get like 5, 10 persons in a particular room to work on something. So branching is, okay, we all have one goal to build a product, right? Okay, you're to work on login screen. Okay, don't do it here. Do it somewhere else, right? You're to work on sign up. You know what? Don't do it in this room. Do it somewhere else. When you are done, then I'll check out what you've done. If it is fine, then I'll bring it and kind of join it with what I have. So that's the concept of what branches. So everybody, you're not working in isolate per se. You're all connected, but you kind of branch out to work on your own. So when you're done, you can now we can now check out, okay, what you've done. You can see checkouts there. The git checkout command basically is just to switch from one branch to another. So I can just check out your branch and see what you have done there. If it's fine and it's okay, then we can now bring it. So the essence is everybody should not work on the same branch. If not, there'll be chaos. So think of it this way. Imagine I put 7 of you in one room and I tell 7 of you to sweep. You understand? I give you broom. I say sweep. it's going to be chaotic because in the process, and let's assume the room is even small. This person will be sweeping, and I want everybody to actually sweep. Well, see that your broom that has moved, you've probably moved sand to where somebody else has swept. So it's just going to be chaotic. Okay, so then we have git merge. Git merge basically just means, you know what, give me the changes from this branch, right? I want the changes from this branch and I want to merge it to the current branch I'm working on. So it's more like, you know what, I want to kind of bring in what you've done, your sign up. I was working on sign in, you've worked on sign up, right? Okay, let me what, merge what you have worked with mine. So that's just take it, that's literal, just use the literal meaning of the word, right? Then we have git pull, right? Git pull, what git pull does is that it fetches and merges changes from a remote repository to the current branch. So when we say remote repository, we're talking about the repository that is online, right? You know, on that is on GitHub. Okay, so that's a remote repository. Okay, so when I say git pull, I want to get changes from the remote repository into the current branch that I am working on. Yeah, git push. So basically, git push is just to upload the changes in your local repository to the remote what repository. Just think of it like you're uploading your picture to your Google Drive for safekeeping. So that's push, you're pushing it. So git remote add. So this is where you link your local repository to an a remote repository. So that's the command we use, git remote add, then origin and the URL. We'll do that. We'll do all that. You can also use some other commands to see the list of remote repositories, but I'll show you all that. Git fetch is just to what get is to download commits, files from a remote repository to your local repository. But what it does is that it does not integrate them into the current branch. It just fetches them for you to see. You have not merged it. Okay, you have not merged it. Okay, you're just fetching it. You're just saying, okay, send me your login, your login screen. You have not merged it, you just want to see it, you're fetching it. If you're okay, you can merge. If you're not okay, you can kind of do away with it. So it does not integrate them into the current branch, but it just downloads them. Then git rm, right, is to remove a file from a working directory and the staging area. That's basically what it does. Then git stash is just to temporarily save changes to your working directory, right? Just, when you're typing something and you have to step out, you just do Control S. Okay, let me just save this first when I come back. Or maybe you copy something online and you need to make some updates to that document. But before you do it, you just want to temporarily save it so you don't lose it. You understand? Maybe you want to switch to something else. You just save. That's the concept of git stash. And then git rebase. So git rebase is just to reapply commits from the current branch to a particular to a specific branch. So we'll make use of all these things. So let's do some practical, right? I'm going to work with my terminal first, and then we'll see what we can do on VS Code. Okay. So first of all, I want to believe that you have created a GitHub account. Is there anybody here that hasn't created a GitHub account? Just signify by raising your hand. Is there anybody that hasn't created a GitHub account? Okay, so you all have created a GitHub account. That's good. Okay, so I don't need to do that now. So one thing you can do also, for the purpose of this tutorial, or this class rather, is to download Git Bash. Okay, yeah, you can just go download Git Bash, and I'm just going to use it to explain, do some of these or just go and download Git. Actually, it comes with that in the installation. So when you download Git for Windows, right, just go to Google. You can just search Git Bash, or you can just say download Git, and then it will take you, or you go to git/scm.com/downloads, right? So just download Git and then you'll be fine. But I'll drop a resource if anybody's having issues with downloading. We can sort that out on the Discord. I don't want to do that on this call, so it doesn't take much of our time. So I'm going to just bring up my terminal now, right? So this is actually my Git Bash. right? So if you have downloaded Git, you should be able to have access to this. Okay, so this is my terminal. So let's, kind of do some stuff. Now, I'm going to be using some terminal commands, right, to do a bit of stuff. So first of all, um, I don't know if you know this. This is PWD, that's print working directory. So this shows me the current directory I'm on, which is what user, right? I can do an ls. Ls shows you the list of files you have what's there, right? Trying to, I've always clear. Okay, good. Clears that. So we are currently on this. So I can decide, let me switch to desktop. CD means change working directory. So now you can see I'm on desktop. So I want to create a file, right? Which I'm going to make a repository and we'll do some Git, take some Git actions, right? So on desktop, so let me see. Let me create a folder, a directory rather. So I'm going to say mkdir, which is make directory. I'm going to call it Git class, right? So yes, it has been created, but I need to now go into that directory. So I'm going to say cd to change directory to Git class. And you can see here, I'm now in that. So if I do pwd, print working directory, you can see now I'm in C users, user, desktop, Git class, okay? So here I want to create a file in this directory. On command line, you can use the touch. So I'm going to say, let me just say file.txt, just a text file, right? So if I do ls is just to list. You can see I have these two. I have this file here. So let me create another one. Search. I think you can create, I think if I do something like this, it's been a while actually. Let's say file two. Let me see if this will create two of them at the same time. So ls. Okay, good. So we have three files. And if I go to my, of course, if you go to your File Explorer, you actually see that these files actually what exist. Okay, so remember our very first command, which is git init, right? So when we call git init, basically what we are saying is that we want to what initialize that file, right? So basically just making it a repository, right? So we want to what initialize what git there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to now say git init, and you can see initialized empty Git repository in this user desktop Git class. And you can see this is the file. It generates this .git what file. Now, this file is hidden. If I do ls, you won't see it. But let me see, is this the leh or is it can I remember this stuff now? Uh, it's been a while. I'll try to remember. Excuse me. I'll try to remember that. So, but I wanted to just show you because it's actually hidden, right? It's actually hidden. So let me see if I can remember that. Ls. Uh, let me try. Let me see. Let's say ls. I think dash a. Okay, good. Yeah. So yeah, that's ls dash a. So what ls dash a? So it just gives you it kind of lists all the files, excuse me, including the hidden files, right? It lists all the files, including the hidden files. Um, there is um, there is ls dash la. Yes. Okay. Good. So this one lists it with a bit more detailed information as to the read and write properties and all the stuff like that. So, but well, let's just get back to where we were. So we are still on Git now. Once we initialize Git, Git gives us a default branch name, which is called master, right? So if I say Git branch, So you can see we are on what master, right? I think I can rename this git branch dash m, and let me say main, right? You can see now the name has changed to what main. Okay, so that's how to rename a branch. Okay, so we did the very first stuff, which is git init, right? So we have initialized this directory. Okay, so let's do a git status to see the status of this. So if I say git status, so you can see on branch called main, we don't have any commits, but we have untracked what files. So we have initialized it, but it hasn't started tracking what the state of our files. And what did it say? It says use git add with the file name to include what will be what committed. So that means, remember, our git add adds it to the staging area. So I can say git add, and it says git add and then the file. So I want to add just the first one. So I can say git add file.txt and then click enter. So if I do a git status, so you can see no commits yet, but changes to be committed is what this new file, which is file.txt, but these ones are not what tracked. You understand? So how can you track? You can actually just add all of them by saying git add dot. So with git add dot, it will add all of them. So when I do a git status, so you can see all have been what added. So of course, so what's the next thing? So let me just see git log. Your current brand does not have any commit, so there's nothing you can't show any log because there's no commit. So let's commit. So so git commit, this is the way we say git commit and then dash m, and then you pass in the message in a quotation. So I can just say initial commit. It's just a message that should explain what you have actually done, but let's be descriptive. Created 3 files in directory, and then I click enter. So you can see git commit that main root commit. Now you can see the ID. This is like the something used to identify that commit. Created 3 files. This is the message. So it shows 3 files changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions, and then create mode for each of these, right? So I can do a git status. So my git status now says nothing to commit. The working tree, everything is clean. So if I do a git log, so you can see git log shows me the author, which is me, right? The dates, and then the message. And this is the commit hash, or this is the commit what hash. And then, so that's that. So talking about repository, I'm going to, well, have to create a repository to probably show this. So let me just a second. Okay, so so let me just bring up my GitHub so we can create a repository, right? We can create a repository and then see how it works. So because currently we have been able to add the files. Now the next thing is we need to actually push it. Okay, everything we have done is locally. If your laptop gets an issue, it crashes or whatever, you have lost everything. Okay, you have lost your project and whatever it is you were working on. But of course, once you push it to a remote repository, right, on GitHub, right, then we have, we always have a copy of that as far as you're always tracking the changes. So hold on, just trying to bring up my GitHub to the screen, right? Okay, this should come here now. Okay, so yeah, so that's loading, right? So just a moment while it loads up. Please, on the chat, just to confirm you can hear me, so that I'm sure that's, so let me,
Yes, we can hear you. We can
okay,
hear you properly.
let me just split my screen. you know, so that we okay, good. So we have so I think it's kind of taking a bit longer. Maybe I should just refresh it. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so this is okay, yeah. Okay, so these are created for I'm going to create a new repository now, right? I'm just going to click on this new, right? So I want to create a remote repository where we're going to push this you know, files, what we have just done now. We need to be able to now push it to an online repository for safekeeping, for collaboration, for tracking, for whatever reason, right? Okay, so yeah, so we'll give it a repository name. Let me just to give it the same name. I'm going to say Git class, right? I'm going to make it public so that anyone can see it. It's not going to be private. I can add a README now, but I'm just going to ignore that. Can do that later. So just that is fine. And then I'll click on create a repository. Now, when you create a repository, you can see they even give you, you know, more like a startup, something you can do to, you know, get your project up and running, right? So you can see Git init, which we have done, Git add, this to add a file, but we have added our own. So later on, you can add yours. You can add a README file. And a README file is basically just is a file that's going to contain more like an explanation or insight into what your project is about. So you can see commits, which we have done. We have done git branch to change, but what we have not done is git remote add. So I'll just copy this, and this basically means that, you know what, I want to now link. This is the URL I want to link my local repository to, right? That's basically that. So we say git remote add origin. Now, origin is the default branch name. Origin is the kind, origin means that, okay, this is the what remote. Okay, so add, so what this command is saying, git remote add this origin, add this URL and make it the what origin. Okay, so I'm just going to paste that here. So let me do a git status first. Okay, we're good. So I'm going to paste that and then click enter. So you can see git remote add. So it's done, but how can we confirm? I think git remote dash v. Yes, so git remote dash v will show you what so the name of it is all called origin. It's just a default name. So you can see this, you can use it to fetch, you can use it to push. Okay, so what we want to do now is what push. So you can see git push dash u origin main, which is the last thing to do, right? So what does this do? So this pushes our changes to the what remote what repository. Dash u is more like for tracking purposes. So it says push the main. Remember, we renamed our branch. We are on the main branch. Push the main branch to the origin. That's what this means. Push the main branch to the what origin. Okay, so I'm going to click. First of all, I'm going to refresh this to be sure that, so you're still seeing this, and the reason you're seeing this is because this repository, this remote repository is empty. So when I push this, I click enter. So let's see, it should prompt me actually too. So I'm using a git so it actually prompts me to kind of sign in. This just from my own setup actually, which I'm gonna do, which I have done. So once it sorts that out, so you can see it has pushed it, right? It has pushed it. You can see counting objects, writing this. So branch main set up to track remote what branch main. So you have a main branch on your local. You also have a main branch on your what remote. Okay. So when I refresh this, let's see, what do we have? So you can see the 3 files that we just created. They are now there. You understand? So that's actually, you know, that's just the concept of Git, just basic stuff, right? Of how to add and then do something. So let's say I create another branch. I want to kind of branch out from, you know, where I'm on the main branch, right? So let me say git, let me just say git branch. So that shows you the two, but we have just the main branch. So I'm going to say git branch. So to check out, so I can say git checkout dash B, and then I'll say new branch. So what I'm doing here is I'm two things. I'm creating a branch and I am moving to that branch. If I just say git checkout new branch, right, you see that it should tell me it shouldn't actually work because there is no branch called, you can see new branch did not match any file. There's no branch called new branch, but when I say git checkout dash B, right, you can see switched to a new what branch. So when I do git branch, you see we have two branches, and this one showing green means that is the branch I am on currently. So let me create a file. We're still in the Git our Git class directory. So let me create a file. Let me say file3.txt, right? Let's do ls. So we have our file3. Okay, I didn't spell that correctly, but well, that's fine. Now on this branch, so this is it. On the other branch, we have 3 files. Okay. Now I'm creating a new branch and I'm doing something else, right? Whereby I created a new file, right? So watch this. Here, when I'm on this new branch, when I did ls, I'm seeing 4 files. Now let me go back to, let me say git checkout main. I've switched back to the main branch, right? Now, switching back to the main branch, when I do ls, right, you can still see this. But let me do a git status. We have something that we are not tracking, right? So let me go back to my new branch, right? And then do a git status, right? Do a git add. I'll just do git add dot, right? Let's commit that. -m, I'm going to say added file 3, right? Let me just use the same way I spelled it. I think that's how I spelled it. Yes, .txt, right? That's just the message. So git status, we're good, right? So let me go back to, let's check out so let me first of all so remember here, right? Of course, everything is still in the same file, right? We are working on the directory, it's just a branching thing, right? So if I say ls, I'll still see this, right? Even if I go back to, so if I go back to main, right, and then do ls, you can see that I don't see it again because now the changes I have made and committed, right, on the other branch is only specific to that branch. It's only specific to the branch. That's why you're not seeing file 3 here. Going back to, if I check out the new branch and do ls, you can see I see file 3. So let's move this up. Let's put this. So now, remember on your remote repository, all these changes we made now, it exists only on your local repository, not on your remote. The only thing that is on remote currently is just these 3 things that with this file. Even if you can see, if I refresh, it's still just these 3 files that we created, right? And just this one commit, commit. So let's now, we're on a new branch. Let me just do a git status. So nothing, but we need to, I think we have done a git add and git commit. So now let's push. So I'm now going to say git push origin. Now I'm not going to say main. What do I want to push? The branch that I'm on, which is what, new branch. So, and then that should now push it. So you can see we have now pushed it to this. So you see the changes here automatically. It says new branch has what recent pushes 1 second ago. Now, but you're seeing something about pull requests, okay? Pull requests. So, what's the concept of pull requests? Right? So just think of it this way, right? You have made changes to your own file, right? Or your own branch. You've pushed it, okay? You've committed it and you've what pushed it. Now, it will not just get automatically merged to what was already there. We have to, if that's why you can see this word compare and then pull that what request, the request that you're making. Because when you create a pull request now, pull request means I want you to take a look at what I've done. If it is okay, merge it to what was already there. Okay, so I can do that here on GitHub, right? Or you can just copy this link and paste it on your browser, right? So if I just control click on this, right, it takes me here, right? Which you can see for some of you, take notes. If you're designing a UI, for example, take note of this moving forward, okay? In fact, I know none of you have pushed, so you will actually do what I'm saying. Take a screenshot of what you've just designed. And, that screenshot is going to be a file. You can actually embed it here, right? One way to do it is, let's say, after taking the screenshots, it's on your laptop, you can just copy the image. When you come here and paste it, it will actually paste it. I usually do it maybe from WhatsApp, or you can just upload a file, right? So there are a lot of things you can do here. Why? The essence is, when you're creating a pull request, basically you're telling the person that, look, I am done. Check it out, and if it's fine, merge it. But the person needs to see it. So if it's a screen, I need to see the screen. So that's why you need to put a screenshot, not just code. Code will not help me do much justice. So you can see the pull request and you can see the changes here. This is the file 3 we added. So you can add your description here. This is a title. So you can see here that we want to compare the new branch with the main. So for me, what you do, of course, when the as far as task is concerned, after you put your description and whatever screenshots, you just click on create pull requests. And you can see this able to merge. So you just see create pull request. And what has that done? It will check for the ability to merge it. So it wants to check to make sure that there's no conflict. We'll talk about conflicts, right? You can see this branch has no conflict. What this means is that under your branch where you were working on and this current one, there's nothing that is clashing. There's no change. You did not try to, you're not overriding anything at any line of code at any place. So if you do that, there will be conflict. Conflict means that, look, on the main and on your branch, in line 10, what is here is different from what is here. So which one am I taking? That's conflict. You understand? So if it is your personal project, listen carefully. If it is your personal project, you can merge these pull requests. But if you are working in a team, this responsibility is given to one person. So, but let me not just say one, it's given to somebody or some persons, right? It's not everybody, because your code has to be reviewed and people has to make sure that, what you did is actually of standard and quality. Okay. But for now, I'm just going to just do this and merge it so that you guys see that. So now what have I done? I've merged it. So it means that on the remote, I have what? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 files, the remote. But that's not the case here, right? That's not the case here. Still here, I just have the local repository. On this, my new branch, ls, is still showing me 4 files. But if I check out the main and do ls, I have just 3. So that's where git pull comes in. So what does it mean? You want to pull changes from the remote to your current branch, and the current branch we want here is the main. So I'm going to say git pull from the origin, and what branch do I want to pull from the origin? Pull the main for me. So git pull origin main. So you can see it will now bring in the changes, and that changes here is this file 3.txt. So if I do a git status, if I do ls now, you can see I now have file 3. So this is just a crash course on Git and the basic things you're going to be using. Now, as time goes on, some of the things you're going to be learning it as we are implementing, as we are coding, as we are collaborating. It's not everything I can teach now, in this class, but as you're collaborating, you get to learn more about them. Okay, so that's kind of just just a crash course on the basic Git commands that you're going to need at this point, right? You're going to need at this point. Now I have this. So this was the application we were working on, right? So let's implement Git on this now. I don't have this on, what's it called? I don't have a remote repository for this. So let me create one. Um, okay. So let me just create one. The name of this file is first demo. So let me just say, let me still give it the same thing, first demo, right? I'll make it public. So I'll create a repository. So in the same way on your VS Code, you can just do the same thing. You're still working with files. So I'll just go to my terminal, right? And do git init. So you can see initialize git repository. So you now notice colors will change, right? This is just from my own, your color may be different, but you can see this kind of like a blue color stuff or something, right? This media query is white, right? So because there's no changes here. This is actually a default class. So, but don't worry about whatever. Just think of this. These are just files, right? So if I do a git status, right, you can see that I have all these files that I'm not tracking, all these files. So, for example, this web, let's say git, what's it called? Git readme.md, right? I can decide to add only that file, git readme.md, right? And if I do a git status, you can see that that one becomes a different color because I have added that one to the staging area. But I want to just add everything just for the purpose of this demo. So I'm just going to do git add dot. So it adds all of them to the staging area. So if I do git status, you see that, they're all in the staging area, the whole file, everything. Okay. Then I'm going to say git commit -m, which is for message. Let me just say initial commits. And then send that, and then that's done. But I can't push because I don't have a remote repository. So I'm just going to come here. Now you can see the default, this thing here is master, right? So you can just change it. You can change it to anything, but convention is usually main or dev. So you can just say main, right? Git branch, -m main. Okay. So you can see it has changed here. So so let's say git push. Okay, we have not added. So git remote add. Okay, I copied that. No, not this one. Okay, let me just copy this. Okay, so so I can now do git push. So git push origin main. So that should now push it to so I just need to sign in. Okay. So yeah, authentication is complete. Yeah, so you can see. So once I refresh this, you should see all these files. You can see them. All these files, everything is now hosted on GitHub. So it's hosted on GitHub, right? But we are making use of Git. So yeah, so that's just a crash course on that's just a crash course on Git and GitHub. Yeah. So are there any questions? I just gave you guys the basic things you need, especially with respect to your task. As we move on with collaboration, you get to learn, a bit more about Git and some other interesting commands. So any question? So when I say you should submit your Git, listen, right? So you can just, what's it called? Come to code and just copy this link, right? So where if you write or excuse me, or you just give me this one. Of course, if it's public, this one I'll have access to it. So this is just it. Um you don't need to do any access thing per se, except your what's it called? Your repository is private, right? Except your repository is private, but if it's public, then it's something that I can view. So that's just where you get your just this URL, just copy that, and then that's fine. Okay, so whose hand is raised? David. David, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, for instance, now you made a pull request and you've merged, and then when you went back to your code, you found out that you want to revert to the former uh, stage it was, like the former code you had before the recent push. How do you revert to that?
Okay. Okay, so it depends on what exactly, the word when you say revert, it depends on what you still want to achieve, right? And the particular state you want your what's it called? Code or project is. Now, that's why let's even start from the basic. That's why you have branches, right? Just by checking out to the branch where you had that change, the particular file and the changes you wanted, just by going there, right? It kind of takes you back to the that particular state, right? So that's kind of like just basic. But like I said, in the end, it depends on what exactly the particular states you actually want. Because to reverse a merge, after you've merged, to revert it in Git, okay, there is first of all, you have to identify the merge commits, because everything is all about commits, right? By doing git log, right? So you can see here, I have just one commit. I had just one that have been created. So first, that's the first thing you need to do. You need to identify the merge commits. Then you now need to now revert that. You have to use the git revert command. I think git revert and then I think it uses the M option also. Now, the M option is to specify the parent number. And typically, when you want to revert to the state of the branch before the merge, so we'll use one. So let's say before, but if it's, two branches above, you use two. So let's assume we want to just revert, with one. Then you now need to give the commit hash, which is this one, this commit hash here, right? Yes, let me see this. Let's test this out. So you can see this will remove, and I have just I've messed up my distance. So well, that's fine. But you can see this kind of just removed everything, right? This removed everything, and it's even opened it in my so it basically just deleted that. So that's why I say it depends on what you want to do. You have to be very careful as to what state you actually want, the state you actually want to go back to, and what should be in that state and what should not be, in that state, right? So let me just close. This is basically what is just showing on this end, right? So you just opened up this. and it's showing me that it has deleted what this, right? It has deleted what, so you can see this reverts initial commit. This was the commit, right? So you say revert initial commit. This reverts this particular what commit. So please enter the commit message for your changes. Lines starting with this will be ignored, and an empty message and this. So it's waiting for me to, you can see here, waiting for your editor to close file, right? So so once I close that file, right? So let me do a git status, right? So back to my git status. You can see that it has actually just it has actually taken out stuff here from my listen. So we have these files that have not been added, the Android, the build, this, that, and all that. So there's still other ways to kind of do a revert, right? There's still other ways to, to do that, right? We have where you can reset the branch to a previous commit. There's git reset, there's git revert and push. Which other one? Yeah, I think those are the basics, but just that you just need to be very, very careful when you're using git revert. So just try to, in fact, try to make sure you never ever have to, kind of do it. Just try to make sure you never have to kind of, do that. Right. Okay, so any question again? Let's try something. Daniel, go ahead.
Okay, so what if I just noticed that the person I wanted to ask, you just deleted the hash key and then deleted most of the files. But what if you want to delete it from the GitHub? You want to delete that particular repository from the GitHub completely. You don't want to have it anymore in your.
You mean file and not repository?
Yes,
If you want to delete
yes.
repository, just go to GitHub and delete the repository. You just go to GitHub and remove the repositories, not so you don't have to. So the thing is, some of these things, when you want to do some of all these actions, it's best to create a new branch and take that action so that in case you mess things up, you know that it was done. Like, for example, you see, I have messed things up now, right? And I did it. I can't go to any previous state because this is the only branch I was working. I didn't create a new branch, right? So if you guys can notice, my lib folder is nowhere to be found. You understand? My lib folder is nowhere to be found right now. You understand? So that is it. Just be very careful when you're doing. It's best to what I decide to do it first, so you see what it can cost. So you're careful. So whenever you want to take such actions, right? Sometimes it's best just create a new branch and play around it, do any other stuff, so that you always. So it's more like you're being safe. You're having a safe copy, somewhere. Okay. So let me see if I can get back what I did because I was supposed to use this project for another class. Okay. So any question before? I think I was supposed to show you guys something else before we round up. Any other question on Git? So Git is not something we'll stop talking about actually. So right, as as we move on, we'll still get to learn a few more things about it. Any other question? Okay, so in the absence of none, okay, David, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the first one. Although sorry for the file loss.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I didn't even mention that actually.
Okay. So with my question now is with GitHub now. Let's say you want to. I don't know. Maybe it's in line with this particular topic. But in case you want to use GitHub to host your file, like a website, how does one go about it?
We're not on websites now. This is Flutter.
Flutter.
No, we're not talking about websites in as much as you can use Flutter to build for Wisdom. But GitHub has actually It has what we call Git pages, right? Where you can host. It has these pages. You can see here when you come to settings, right? Come to pages, right? So you can actually host on GitHub. So you see Git pages is designed to host your personal Visual project pages from a GitHub history, right? Though it's not going to give you a custom domain, right? You still have the whole github.com/something, something, something, right? Which the source is to deploy it from a particular branch, right? So this is where you actually get to do that. Okay, but of course, I can't demo that. I can't demo that to you because that's not why we're here. Okay, but that GitHub actually has that. So this is so. Okay, so let me show you guys one last thing, right? So in a case like this, I can decide that okay, you know what? Maybe I've lost things, and I can't actually get stuff back, right? There's one thing you can also do, and that is to clone a what's it called? To clone a repository, right? So I can do it in terminal. I can also do it here, right? So let me see, where should I do it? Where? Let me use VS Code. Let's see. So, how many of you are good with terminals? How many of you, is there anybody that is good in command line here? Terminals. Okay, good. So David, now I'm on this first demo here, right? I want to move down to just this folder, this directory, first project. I'm actually on first demo, right? I want to move to first project folder. How can I do that? A very long way would be to do CD and then I just copy this whole path and stop here. Good. So CD dot dot. Good. You're right. Your head is there. Okay, so this takes me to first project. I can also just do another CD dot dot. So I'm here. So let's do ls. Okay, so we can't use ls here actually, but so in here, right, in this folder, I want to get this. So I'm just going to delete this particular guy now. I'll delete this guy from here, and I'm going to create a new, what's it called? I want to just clone this guy. So I want to get what is online and have it on my local, have a local copy of it. So desktop. I'm just going through my so let me just okay. Yeah, okay. So so in here, let me create, there's a folder. Let me just create a folder here. I want to kind of do some terminal stuff. So I'll call it git clone. The folder name will be git clone. So I don't know if CD will work here. Let me see. Yeah, okay, it does work. Sorry. So git clone. So I created this folder. So I have this here. So I want to get this repository into this folder. So I can just come to code here. And then, to clone it, I need this. This is the cloning URL. I need this. So I'm just going to copy it, right? And then I'll say git clone, and then paste the link. I think this should be that. So you see cloning into this, right? So you can see we have into this place, right? So it has gotten this project, right? Let's see. Okay, so to confirm that, you can see it here, right? I just brought it in, so you can see it here. Let me go back a bit. So you can see I created this git clone. And then now inside the git clone, we have this first demo. inside that, you can see we have everything that we have here, right, down to this place. Okay, so what I can do is I can now open this open folder, right, and then I'll go to let's go to git clone. So this is the folder I want to open, this one. Select that and then open it. So this is going to be different from what is what I had before. This, you can see this one has the lib because this is the copy that was what remotely saved. The other one was my local that I was playing anyhow with, you understand? Okay, but this one has everything that it's supposed to have. Okay, so yeah, that's just about how to clone stuff from GitHub down to your local repository, right? There are other forms like SSH, GitHub, CLI, but for now, we'll just focus on this. Okay, so that's basically that. Yeah, so I think this is where we're going to call it a wrap. So at least this will help you once you're done with your task, you can upload to GitHub and submit. So thank you very much, guys.
Sir, please, you before the start of the class, you said that you're going to put us on the tax at hand.
Yes. I said I was going to do that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Just reminding you, sir.
Yeah, sure.